The clock struck midnight in the glass tower of Dawson Enterprises. Everyone had gone home, except her. Victoria Dawson, 32, CEO and rumored ice queen of New York finance, lay motionless on the leather couch in her corner office, pretending to sleep. She wasn't tired. She was testing him. The janitor, a quiet single dad named Luke Harris, 35, had refused her job offer earlier that week, and tonight she wanted to know why. But what she witnessed through half-closed eyes changed everything, because within the next hour, that same man would save her $10 million project and every job in the building, while thinking no one was watching. Before we dive in, drop a comment with where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit subscribe for more videos like this. Let's begin. The soft hum of the cleaning machine echoed through the marble lobby of the 58th floor. Luke Harris moved with quiet precision, shoulders broad beneath his gray uniform, a small flashlight clipped to his chest pocket. His wedding ring hung from a chain around his neck, glinting whenever he bent to pick something up. The man didn't speak much, just worked hard and left quietly. That intrigued Victoria more than she'd admit. Lying on the couch near her desk, she cracked one eye open, watching him polish the glass wall overlooking the Manhattan skyline. Her company, her empire, was built on control, on knowing everything that happened in her building. And yet this man, this janitor who always left early to catch the bus, felt like the one mystery she couldn't solve. Luke glanced at the large trading screen across the room. A red warning box flickered suddenly. Unauthorized transfer detected, $10,000 at risk. He frowned. That's not right, he muttered, setting down the mop. The glow reflected in his eyes as he stepped closer, scanning the lines of code scrolling across the monitor. Oh, no, you're not taking this money. Victoria's heartbeat quickened. She didn't move, didn't even breathe. He can read code? Luke sat at the keyboard, fingers flying with a confidence that didn't belong to a janitor. He muttered under his breath, typing commands like muscle memory. Firewall bypassed. Fake proxy server. This is someone inside the system. The cursor blinked. Access override pending. Funds transferring in 60 seconds. He whispered, "Not today." Victoria's pulse pounded in her ears. Every second felt like a lifetime as she watched him navigate layers of encryption, tracing the source back to an internal IP. He was rewriting the company's security commands, calmly, efficiently, like a man who had done this 1,000 times before. 30 seconds. 20. He rerouted the data stream, closed the breach, and restored the main firewall. System secure. Transfer terminated. Luke leaned back, exhaled deeply, and whispered, "Good. You're safe now, Miss Dawson. You don't even know it." That sentence hit her harder than any corporate deal ever had. She sat up slowly. "Mr. Harris?" Luke spun around, startled. "Ma'am, I thought you'd gone home." Victoria rose from the couch, her heels clicking on the marble floor. "What did you just do?" He stood awkwardly, wiping his hands on his uniform. "Just fixed a little problem. Looked like a breach." "You fixed it?" she repeated, disbelief etched across her face. "You just stopped a $10 million theft." He shrugged, avoiding her gaze. "Used to work in IT security before my wife passed. Haven't touched a computer in years." For the first time, Victoria's voice softened. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" "Didn't seem important," he said simply. "You pay me to clean floors, not save companies." His tone was calm, humble, but his words cut through her armor like glass. She'd built her success on hiring the best minds money could buy. Yet the man who just saved her company didn't care about titles, recognition, or bonuses. She crossed her arms. "You turned down my offer last week. Why?" He looked her in the eye. "Because my son needs me home by 7 every night. He's only 7 years old, ma'am. I can't trade that for a corner office." The honesty in his voice disarmed her. There was no bitterness, no self-pity, just quiet conviction. Victoria didn't know what to say. She looked down, blinking faster than usual. "You're a good man, Mr. Harris." He smiled faintly. "Just trying to be the dad my boy deserves." As he packed up his tools and headed for the door, she called out, "Luke?" He turned back. "Yes, ma'am?" "Thank you," she said softly. "You didn't just save $10 million. You saved a company full of people who depend on it." He gave a small nod, eyes tired but kind. "I'm just glad I was here." When the elevator doors closed behind him, Victoria stood alone in her silent office, surrounded by city lights reflecting off glass. For the first time in years, the CEO, known for her steel composure, felt something she hadn't felt since childhood: humility. And somewhere deep inside, she knew one thing. She owed that man far more than a thank you. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the massive windows of Dawson Enterprises, painting the marble floors gold. The skyline gleamed, the city pulsed, and yet Victoria Dawson couldn't shake the image of the quiet janitor, saving her empire like it was nothing. Every board member had been on edge during the emergency briefing. $10 million, seconds from vanishing, was recovered through what the IT director called an anonymous security override. But Victoria knew exactly whose hands had typed those commands. She didn't mention his name. Not yet. She wanted to see who Luke Harris was outside of these walls. At 7:30 a.m., her black town car rolled through the misty streets of Queens, far from her usual route. She'd tracked Luke's employee file, not to invade his privacy, but because she couldn't ignore the curiosity gnawing inside her. The address led her to a modest 2-story duplex, paint peeling slightly around the windows. A little boy stood outside, backpack slung over one shoulder, laughing as his father tied his shoes with exaggerated seriousness. She watched from the car for a moment before stepping out. Luke looked up, surprised. "Miss Dawson?" His son's eyes widened. "Dad, is that your boss?" Victoria smiled faintly. "Something like that." Luke wiped his hands on his jeans, clearly uncomfortable in front of the CEO who ruled half the financial district. "Ma'am, you didn't have to come here." "I know," she said, "but I wanted to." She knelt to meet his son's gaze. "You must be Evan." The boy nodded shyly, clutching his father's hand. "Dad says you're the lady who builds really big buildings." Victoria laughed softly. "I try." Then her tone softened. "Your dad's a hero, you know." Luke cleared his throat. "Ma'am." But she continued, eyes locked on the child's. "He saved hundreds of jobs last night. Without him, a lot of people wouldn't have a paycheck this week." Evan's eyes lit up. "You did that, Dad?" Luke smiled awkwardly. "Guess so." The moment hung in the air. A small boy's pride, a single dad's humility, and a CEO realizing how narrow her world had become. She took a deep breath. "Luke, I owe you an explanation and a thank you." He shook his head. "You don't owe me anything, ma'am. I was just doing what anyone would." Victoria's voice turned firm. "No. Most people wouldn't have done what you did. You stayed calm, you acted fast, and you didn't ask for credit. That's rare." He looked at her quietly for a moment, then gestured toward the old bus stop across the street. "You want coffee, Miss Dawson?" It's not your usual $5 blend, but it's strong. She hesitated, then smiled. Lead the way. They sat at the cracked metal bench, steam rising from paper cups. Cars hissed past. The smell of roasted beans mingled with the crisp morning air. For once, Victoria felt invisible. Just another person waiting for a bus. Luke broke the silence first. You ever wonder why people like me don't chase promotions? She looked at him curiously. Tell me. Because some of us already had the big life once. My wife and I ran a small cybersecurity firm. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. When she got sick, the hospital bills ate everything. I sold the business to pay for her treatment. After she passed, I couldn't go back to that world. His voice cracked slightly. The money, the long hours, it all felt empty without her. Victoria felt something twist in her chest. I'm sorry, Luke. I didn't know. He gave a small smile. Didn't expect you to. I'm not the kind of guy people notice. Her gaze softened. I noticed. For a long moment, neither spoke. The morning bustle faded around them, just two people from opposite worlds sharing quiet honesty. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. Her finance director, Richard, was calling. Excuse me, she said, answering. Yes? Richard's voice was frantic. Victoria, we just discovered who planted the malware last night. It was internal, one of our senior partners. He's threatening to leak everything unless we pay him off. Her eyes narrowed. Send me the file. Already on your email. She hung up, opened the attachment, and her blood ran cold. It was real. The same breach Luke had stopped was traced back to Harvey Kincaid, one of her most trusted executives. Luke noticed the color drain from her face. Everything all right? Not really, she muttered, showing him the phone. He's blackmailing us. If this gets out, the company's stock crashes. Thousands of people could lose their jobs. Luke studied the data, brows furrowed. He left traces when he tried to hide the transfer. You can expose him easily if you move fast. But you'll need to access the server logs before he deletes them. Victoria blinked. You think you can do that? He chuckled. Ma'am, I may clean floors now, but that doesn't mean I forgot how to fight digital fires. Without hesitation, she stood. Then let's go. Back in her office an hour later, Luke sat behind her desk. This time not with a mop, but with 3 monitors running. Fingers flew over the keyboard, his calm composure returning like second nature. Victoria stood beside him, watching his code scrolled faster than her eyes could follow. Harvey's smart, Luke muttered, but not as smart as he thinks. He's using an old encryption tunnel I built years ago. That's how I know where to find it. You built this? She asked, stunned. He nodded. When Dawson Enterprises bought out our firm 5 years back. Her jaw slackened. You were the owner of CyberForge Technologies? Luke's lips tightened. Co-owner. My wife founded it. Silence fell over the room as realization sank in. The janitor she'd overlooked once built part of the company's infrastructure, and now he was saving it, again. After 10 minutes of furious typing, he leaned back. Done. He's locked out. System secure. You'll find all the evidence you need in this folder. Victoria scanned the files and whispered, Luke, this could put him in prison, or stop him from ruining innocent people's lives. Luke said simply, Your call, ma'am. She looked at him, really looked, and saw something she hadn't seen in years. Quiet honor. No greed, no agenda. Just a man doing what was right because it was right. I'll take it from here, she said softly. But you You just saved $10 million twice. He smiled faintly. Guess I'm having a productive week. Victoria laughed, an unguarded, genuine sound that surprised even her. As Luke stood to leave, she said, "Luke, wait. Tomorrow, bring Evan to the office." He frowned. "Why?" She smiled, eyes glinting. "Because heroes deserve more than thank yous. And I think your son should see where his dad just made history." When Luke and Evan stepped off the elevator the next morning, the 58th floor did not look like the world of an ice-cold billionaire CEO. It looked like a school field trip someone had accidentally set down in a glass castle. A long whiteboard stood beside the reception desk with a handwritten welcome. "Evan's puzzles. Solve 3. Win a prize." Paper rockets and one small inhaler with a rainbow sticker sat in a neat line on a table. Evan's eyes went round. "Dad, they knew I liked puzzles." Luke glanced at Victoria. "You did this?" She shrugged, almost bashful. "I had help. HR thought a kid-for-a-day setup would be fun, and our office manager, Nora, insisted on the rockets. Full disclosure, I lost 2 hours making fins stick." "Fins matter," Evan said gravely. He picked up a rocket and whooshed it through the air. Luke chuckled, then lowered his voice. "You didn't have to go this far." "I did," she said. "Last night I went home and realized I've spent years building a fortress so high I forgot who I was trying to protect. Today I fixed that." Richard appeared, tie straight, tablet in hand. "The board's assembling. Legal has the packet you compiled, Luke. We're set." Luke nodded, and his gaze softened when he looked down at Evan. "You good hanging out here, champ? Nora's got the puzzles." "Go be a superhero," Evan whispered, eyes bright. Luke ruffled his hair. "Only if you promise to help Ms. Nora with the rockets." "I promise." The boardroom smelled of fresh coffee and expensive wood polish. 12 directors, all silver cufflinks and careful smiles, sat around the long table. The skyline burned behind them, morning sun turning glass into fire. Victoria entered with Luke and Richard. A hush followed. Harvey Kincaid was already there. Dapper, controlled, a half-smile like he was practicing sympathy in a mirror. He rose with just enough dignity to be mistaken for sincerity. "Victoria, before this farce continues, I urge you to think about the reputational damage of false accusations." Victoria slid a folder to the center of the table. "No accusations, Harvey. Evidence." Richard tapped the tablet and mirrored the screen. Time-stamped logs, IP trails, the obsolete encryption tunnel. Then the clincher, Harvey's midnight message to an offshore relay, promising a controlled leak unless compensation offsets are arranged. Murmurs rippled. Someone cursed under their breath. Harvey's smile didn't crack, but his eyes did. "This is a misunderstanding. A misfiled dev archive." Luke stepped forward, voice even. "You didn't misfile anything. You built a detour. You assumed no one would remember the tunnel because it was old. But you forgot the man who wrote it." For a beat, no one moved. Then the board turned, collectively, to the man in the gray facility uniform. Victoria let the moment sit, the power shift landing with the weight it deserved. "The person standing next to me saved this company twice. He is not our janitor today. He is the architect who sealed your back door." Harvey's mask dropped. "So we're trusting a custodian over a partner who's delivered quarterly growth for 6 years?" Victoria didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "We're trusting the truth. And the truth is, you endangered thousands of families to leverage a payout." She lifted the legal packet. "You're suspended effective immediately. Security is waiting outside. Legal will coordinate with the authorities." Harvey tried one last angle. If this goes public, the stock dives. You'll be blamed for exposing it. Victoria looked at Luke. He gave a small nod. Your call, ma'am. She turned back to the table. Then we tell the truth publicly, and we do it before the market opens. No euphemisms, no spin. We protected our people and our partners. We removed the threat. We're stronger for it. A director at the far end cleared his throat. Shareholders will ask who stopped the theft. We'll tell them, Victoria said, by name. She glanced at Luke. If he allows it. Luke shifted, uncomfortable. I don't need attention. Maybe not, Victoria replied softly. But the kids of this company do. They need to learn who heroes look like. Silence spread, this time not tense, but reverent. The live town hall broadcast started 15 minutes later. Employees from plants in Ohio, a warehouse in Nevada, a design lab in Austin, little rectangles filled the wall screen like a mosaic of lives. Victoria stood at the podium. Luke stayed beside the tech cart, half hidden, as if he could will himself transparent. Good morning, she began. I owe you the truth. She laid it out clean. The breach, the attempted transfer, the lockout, the suspension. She talked about guardrails and new audits. Not fear, but resilience. Then she made a choice she hadn't planned 30 minutes earlier. I also owe you a name. She looked left. Luke. He blinked, startled. Will you join me? She asked. He walked up slowly, the murmur from 1,000 speakers turning into a soft wind. Victoria stepped aside. The podium light caught the chain around his neck, the ring, the steady rise of his chest. I'm Luke Harris, he said, voice quiet but steady. I clean floors here. Yesterday, I cleaned code. A smattering of laughter broke the tension. He let it settle. I'm Safi, a single dad. I used to run a small security outfit. Life changed. I took work that let me be home for dinner. Last night, I saw a red flag and did what I could. He glanced at Victoria. This place is full of people whose names you don't see on press releases. They keep the lights on. If you're watching this and feel invisible, just know it doesn't mean you're not important. For a second, his voice caught. He swallowed. That's it. The chat wall exploded with hearts and thank you emojis and a flood of "We see you," Luke from usernames he'd never met. Victoria returned to the mic. One more thing. Effective immediately, we're creating the Quiet Hands Fund, a standing program for any Dawson employee facing a family medical crisis. It launches with $1 million in corporate seed money. She looked at Luke, named in honor of the hands that saved us. Luke's face went still. He didn't cry. He just nodded, mouth tight, as if holding back an ocean. After the stream, the floor hummed like spring. Nora shepherded Evan into the corner office, carrying 2 paper rockets, each with a sticky note star on the tail. CEO approved, she whispered, winking at Victoria. Evan held one out to his dad. We both won. Luke crouched. You sure did? Victoria cleared her throat. Luke, There's one more thing. She opened a leather folder and slid it across the desk. Inside, a single-page offer. Director of Security Architecture, remote, hybrid. Salary generous. Hours capped at 4 days a week, no nights. Health coverage set at executive tier. A scholarship clause earmarked for Evan's future STEM education. Luke didn't touch it at first. I can't go back to that grind. You won't, Victoria said. I built this around your life. You choose your hours. You report to no one but me. If you need to leave for a school play, you leave. If Evan has a bad asthma day, you log off. We adapt to you, not the other way around. He stared at the paper. working a breath in and out, the room suddenly too small for everything he was feeling. Why me? Because you chose what mattered when no one was watching, she said. You didn't just save $10 million. You gave me a mirror. Her voice dropped. I didn't like what I saw. I like this better. He looked at Evan, who was blowing gently on the rainbow-stickered inhaler like it was a candle he didn't want to extinguish. Then he looked at Victoria. I'll accept on 2 conditions. Name them. First, every member of Harvey's team who didn't know about the breach keeps their job and gets coaching, not blame. Done. Second, you let me keep 1 night shift a month. She blinked. Why? Because some of the folks on facilities are my family now. You see a company, I see people who pass me thermoses and share bus schedules. I don't want to disappear into glass again. Oh, slow smile. 1 night a month. I'll try not to micromanage your mop technique. Good, he said deadpan. Your streak lines were a scandal. She laughed, surprised by the sound of it in her own throat. Security escorted Harvey out without spectacle. Legal would handle the rest. Paper, courts, tidy consequences. Revenge, Victoria realized, wasn't the applause of downfall. It was the quiet restoration of what was right. That felt cleaner, stronger. In the weeks that followed, the Quiet Hands Fund approved its first grant. A line worker in Ohio whose daughter needed a costly procedure. Evan came in on a Saturday to pack the care box with Nora. Puzzle books, a note that read, "From one kid to another, you got this." Luke signed his new contract in the cafeteria over grilled cheese and tomato soup, the ink drying while he helped a nervous intern debug a clumsy script. He didn't make a speech. He showed her how to name variables the way you'd label tools in a toolbox. She left beaming. Victoria began leaving her office earlier. Once, she and Luke found themselves at the same bus stop under a pale blue dusk. She held a paper cup from the bodega, not her usual monogrammed tumbler. No entourage, no tinted SUV. Just a woman in a camel coat waiting on a curb that smelled like rain and pretzels. Strange, she said, watching Evan test a paper rocket against the wind. For years, I treated kindness like a rounding error. Numbers don't breathe, Luke said. People do. She nodded. I'm learning. The bus sighed to a halt. Evan tugged Luke's sleeve. Dad, Miss Dawson can sit with us if she wants. Victoria hesitated, the CEO in her rearing up, then let it fall away. I'd like that. They rode through Queens in a row, a single dad, a little boy, and a woman who had discovered the difference between power that intimidates and leadership that protects. City lights flickered past. Somewhere between stops, Evan fell asleep with his head on his father's shoulder and one hand still holding a paper rocket with a gold star. Luke angled his body so the boy wouldn't slip. Instinct, love, the kind of wealth no market could price. At the next stop, Victoria stood. I'll walk from here. Luke rose too. Thank you for everything. Thank you, she said, surprising herself with how much she meant it. For reminding me what business is for. He lifted the paper offer she'd signed. For the record, he said, a half smile tugging, the title's too long. She grinned. Pick your own. He considered. How about custodian? He tapped the folder. Of code this time. Custodian it is, she said, and stepped into the evening with a lighter stride than she'd had in years. Back in the bus, Evan stirred and whispered without opening his eyes. Did we win, Dad? Luke looked out at a city bigger than both of them, and then down at the boy whose world fit perfectly in the circle of his arm. He thought of the $10 million, The halted transfer, the boardroom, the fund. The odd, beautiful moment when truth became policy. "Yeah, buddy," he murmured. "We won the part that counts